What can I say? New year, new administration, new video. So I was looking through all of the day one orders yesterday, and I was thinking to myself, there's like 17 of them, and not all of them are very straightforward. They're kind of written in legalese. So I figured, this might be the perfect time to get back into the YouTube making scene and kind of touch on some of the highlights that I came across when I was doing all of the reading on the executive orders. So I think the first and most pertinent one to like today would be the creation of a COVID-19 response coordinator position within the administration. And then from there, the executive orders have also restored, and I'm going to look at the title right here, the Directorate for Global Health Security and Biodefense on the National Security Council. I know that's kind of a long, kind of crazy sounding thing, but what that really means is that they've restored that like pandemic team that the news was freaking out about in like the beginning of March last year. You know, that whole thing where it's like, oh, Trump and John Bolton got rid of this like pandemic team that was incidentally a part of the NSC because of like government bloat, because, of the whole ideology of how, businessman Trump wants to streamline things and neocon John Bolton wants to streamline things, one because of efficiency, the other because of getting around red tape. That's kind of the whole reason for doing it in the first place, and Biden has said, no, we're gonna go back to the Obama administration in the sense that they've recreated the directorate within the National Security Council. For those who aren't just like super sure what the National Security Council does, it's basically the executive branch's hub for coordinating all of the military and the intelligence agencies in terms of like threats to national security. Yeah, it's fairly obvious. But as more of a fun fact, I'd say that the National Security Council was created alongside the CIA to combat the Soviet Union back in 1947. So that makes it a post World War II instrument of the executive branch. And as you could probably guess, it's therefore not a diplomatic arm of the executive branch, mainly because it has both the military and intelligence agencies involved. So uh, you might have a problem with them being like the focus for tackling a pandemic when it should probably be a little more diplomatic, but hey, that's just a criticism that I have at the very least. Another highlight that I saw was that he instituted a mask mandate on all federal property and for all federal employees. The main reason for doing this would be that a full blown, mask mandate across the United States, everywhere, it's not going to stand up in court. Thank you, the South. So that's not going to happen, but this seems to be what he's able to do like day one right now. He can get that done at the very least. As a side note, he's also started a challenge to urge people to wear masks for 100 days to help prevent the spread, but I don't know how that's going to go. I assume it's going to be like how it's been for the last half a year, where there's a sizable amount of the country that's wearing masks, and then there's about 30% who don't, and it's not going to go away for a little while, but eventually it will. We don't know when. It's probably going to be longer than we expect, but it will probably go away at some point. Next point, rejoining the World Health Organization. For those who aren't keyed in, WHO is a specialized organization that is mostly autonomous within the UN, and uh, Dr. Fauci is going to be heading the U.S. delegation on that. So, like him or hate him or whatever, he's going to at least have some experience that's going to be brought to the World Health Organization. It's not like we're going to be starting over. Okay, next point. He's going to call on Congress to provide permanent status and a path for citizenship for the Dreamers, aka those kids who came to the U.S. when they were super young, out of no fault of their own. I think you call them illegal immigrants or whatever. I don't like that term. They're just people. No, I don't care about any of that stuff. They're here. They were little kids. They basically grew up here. They're basically Americans. There's not really a point in saying, "Oh, you're illegal." That's just me though. You could have something different. I'll fight you on it, but whatever. Interesting note on this is that the U.S. hasn't really reformed their immigration policy since, the god of conservatism, Reagan, gave amnesty to the immigrants back in the 80s. So, 40 years of this is really starting to take its toll. And this is kind of just a band aid over a much needed immigration reform policy that we may or may not see under Biden. I'll get into that in another video in terms of where I see the Biden administration's trajectory going. The next two orders go hand in hand. The first one said that non-citizens are going to be re-included on the census counts, and you're going to stop the push for deporting immigrants in such a aggressive manner. So, to put this in terms that people understand who aren't what the hell does all that mean? Basically, Biden wants the census to actually reflect the population, whereas it seems Trump was super focused on having immigrants, out of his way so that they quote unquote wouldn't sway any elections or steal jobs or any of that rhetoric stuff that he was feeding his supporters over the last 4 years. But in all honesty, what he was trying to do is he was trying to sway the distribution of voters so that it would help him win. I think we can all recognize that by now. If you're, listening to this and you don't agree, why else would he be doing all this other than just being straight up racist? And that's definitely probably possible, but I think just from a super Machiavellian, I'm just gonna go for power kind of thing, that's the most logical end that we can see for doing all of that. The next one, little more eclectic. It's Liberian nationals won't be deported uh, because of their status being essentially renewed, or I guess protected, so that they can apply for a form of permanent residency status on the condition that they came to America as a way of escaping the civil war in Liberia. That civil war ending in 2003. So, that's cool. Day one thing, you get this kind of stuff. It seems a little random from an outsider's perspective, but hey, good on him for doing it. All right, this one's probably a big one for people. It's ending the entire Muslim ban. Biden, he literally canceled all of it. The original plan, for those who don't remember, said that, okay, we're just going to ban everybody from Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen from entering the country. Read into what you will in terms of what Trump was thinking. But when it came down to it, Iraq got removed from the list when it was finally implemented. Later on, he added restrictions to the countries of Chad, North Korea, and of course, big bad scary Venezuela. And then Sudan was removed from that list. And then in 2020, so much more recently, certain residents from countries such as Kyrgyzstan, Myanmar, and Tanzania were affected. But basically, what Biden has said is none of that applies now. So all of that gone. So people from those countries who are trying to seek asylum or are trying to get visas to come over here, I want to say in 45 to 90 days, they're going to be good to go. Okay, another big one, halting the construction on the border wall that Mexico was supposed to pay for, but it ended up having Trump divert billions of dollars to build it from the budget. And speaking onto that, they're also going to look into the legality of diverting all those funds. So we'll see how that plays out over the coming years. Perhaps the biggest one that I'd see on this list, and I'm just speaking like long term, is rejoining the Paris Climate Accords. You know, I have criticisms about the Paris Climate Accords in the sense that what they really do is say, okay, country A, you come up with your own plan with regards to keeping the planet below 2 degrees Celsius growth in temperature in the atmosphere by X date. There's no real targets being set as an overall overarching kind of dealio. But really, what's going on is, okay, country, you figure it out. You do what you think you can do. It's got to be more than what you're doing right now, and there's not really any enforcement in it, in the sense that like there's like sanctions or whatever. But hey, it's something. It's something. It's better than nothing, but still, it's something. So we could do more, but this is a great step. I really like this one. Okay, and another one that kind of just came out of the blue, no one was really expecting it, was the revoking of the permit on the Keystone Pipeline. Like, yeah, literally out of left field, no one was expecting it. It just kind of happened, and hey, I will give Biden a lot of props on that one. That's actually a very good thing because there was a lot of potential for the pipeline to continue American dependence on oil. And it could also have led to a lot of like oil spills inland because, pipes leak and stuff like that. So, overall, good for that. Within that same executive order, I also saw stuff about putting people on tracking, all the social costs of greenhouse gases, which, to put it in like economic terms, means internalizing all of the externalities via, a market oriented approach to combating climate change. Not a huge fan, in my opinion, of, focusing on market oriented approaches to combating climate change, but hey, it's better than nothing. I'd say we need to do more than that, but if you're going to do something, you might as well start with there because that seems to be the mode of governments for basically everybody in a mainstream Democratic Republican seat of power. So, good on them for even, just starting off there, at the very least. In addition, they have reversed a slash on the size of national monuments, and this is mainly to stop them from being sold out, for drilling and farming them to death, which is, that's overall a good thing. Give them props for that. And then, He's also enforcing a moratorium on drilling off of the parts of the Arctic coast that the U.S. has control over. So I believe that was an Obama era moratorium that Trump was beginning to ignore, but then Biden was like, okay, we're going back to the Obama precedent. So that's good. I don't know how long it's going to last, but it's good to see it right now. All right, next point. Promoting equity to quote unquote underserved and marginalized groups in America, specifically in terms of pay and federal spending. You can read that as basically rooting out racism. They're focusing on the economic impacts of racism in America. I mean, why not? That's good. I don't know if that's the entire spectrum of racism in America, but yeah, that's definitely a big one. So props for that. There was another one for preventing discrimination on the basis of gender and sexual orientation by the federal government, and that being a reversal of the Trump administration. So that's basically how it sounds. You don't discriminate based on gender or sexual orientation. So that's like if you're gay, if you're trans, you're not going to get discriminated against. I believe that includes the military. So don't quote me on that, but watch for that. They ended the 1776 Commission, which I don't know too much about it. I'm going to make a video about that like crazy proposal they put out like on Monday or whatever. Look for that video if slash when it comes out. I read the first page of it and it was kind of crazy. Not gonna lie. So yeah, wait for that. All right, lightning round. There's only a couple left. He's extending a moratorium on evictions. And then there was another one on foreclosures. So that's two moratoriums, one on evictions, one on foreclosures. On federally guaranteed mortgages, at least through March. So, is that like 1 or 2 months more of eviction and foreclosure moratoriums? And then after that, he's probably going to have to re up it if not just like extended through the end of the year. I don't know how he's going to expect to not have people be evicted or foreclosed on after a year of not getting paid. So we're going to see how he deals with that. Second to last one is a pause on federal student loan interest and principal payments through September. So that seems like a better timeline compared to like the eviction and foreclosure moratoriums. They should have probably already put it at September, but I think they're trying to be a little more conservative on the eviction foreclosure front. So, again, I don't know how that's going to go. But at the very least, if you have an eviction notice out, at the very least, you're not going to get double whammied with student loan debt, which a bunch of people are facing right now. And then the final one, and I think this one is one of the more comedic executive orders. It was like the establishment of like ethics rules and how all of his appointees are going to have to sign this like ethics pledge to like restore and maintain trust in government, which I mean, sorry dude, Biden, if you haven't figured out by now, I don't think you're going to get maintenance and trust, maintaining the trust in government from the people you're trying to get trust back from. Like the people who like you already, they trust you 100%, and the people who don't, they're going to be scrutinizing you to all hell. Like, establishing an ethics rule is a very bare minimum, and it's not even that great, especially when I looked deeper into it. I mean, uh, there was like a discussion on like decision making based on merit and in the public interest exclusively, which is Something we should expect from government officials, just like right off the bat, is like a bare minimum. But having to come out and say, "Oh yeah, all of my appointees have to do this," kind of implies that in the past they didn't, which is kind of a scary thought. And then another one I saw was, they have to commit to ethical choices in post government work. So it was the funniest thing. It was like, so that it doesn't look like you're profiting off your time in governments, which is like the funniest thing because we already see some of his appointees taking like millions of dollars from talking on Wall Street. And the fact that like Obama literally did the same thing, gave talks to Wall Street's like a month or two or three after being president. So that precedent, it's new. I don't know if it's gonna work. I don't think it's gonna work. And that's mainly for the next 2 points that I'm gonna bring up. Those being that there's like a 2 year ban on being involved in matters that were related to your former employments or any similar precedents for lobbying. Meaning that, like, you're lobbying for oil or you worked for an oil company, you can't be involved in the legislations involving oil. Which is funny because a 2 year ban on that would mean that, like, halfway through the administration, somewhere after the midterms, all these people can just go crazy. I don't think that's a very thought out strategy. It might be, uh, he might just be trying to be nice, but you probably should have gone at least 4 years, if not like their entire lives. Like, that seems like it's gonna get abused like 2 years after when they're appointed. So that'd be June or not June, January of 2023. They're just gonna start like going crazy, and that's probably the wrong time to do that because it'll be around the time people start talking about presidential candidates for the next cycle or whatever, 2024. So I think it's a flawed uh, plan, but that could just be me. It's probably not. You probably see it too, but I figured I might as well bring it up because it's pretty funny. Other than that, in summation, I'd say overall, pretty good executive orders. There's some weird, funny bits, like with like the whole ethics rules, and then obviously that's just larger gripes with like the Paris Climate Accords just by themselves. It's good that they do something, but I don't know if it's enough. You know what I mean? But yeah, these are pretty much what I was expecting Biden to do. They're not too crazy. And I think he could probably go a little crazier, honestly. But it seems like Biden doesn't want to do that. He wants to, unify and whatever. But I don't know when there's not going to be a time to dream big, when you're going to need to like restructure governments and like basically society fully because uh, a lot of society, especially those connected to the economy, are kind of falling apart right now. So if you're gonna build them up, you probably should build them up, greenly at the very least, if not like a little more democratically, so that this sort of thing doesn't happen again, where there's like a flu or some kind of weird virus from some foreign country, or just like some disease that starts in Oklahoma or something, and it just kind of wipes everything out. It's probably better if there's some like a little more democratic guidelines to make sure the next time something like this happens, it doesn't just like wipe everything out. But from there, I'd say, yeah, continue to watch. Leave any thoughts or feelings you have in the comments. If anybody's watching, who knows? You might be one of the few people that sees this. That could be cool. But other than that, have a good day.